Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. To take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of July 3rd through the 9th. And we've got a full moon in Capricorn, and that's today, this Monday, and also some interesting Mercury energy. 3 aspects, Mercury going one after another later in the week, and Mars in an interesting yod configuration this week. So those are 3 things I want to talk about this week for us. And first I want to let you know the Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do every week, at least, on YouTube. So if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, please become a follower and turn on your notifications, and you'll know whenever I post something. Like last week, I actually posted 2 blogs, not only the weekly, but the monthly too, so for July. So make sure you get a chance to see that. And if you have notifications on and a YouTube follower, then you know I put that up now. Also, it's available on podcasts, and the podcasts have been growing a lot in the last couple months. So yeah, no need to watch a video of me just talking to the camera. The podcast can free you up to listen to the blog and at other times, taking a walk in the park or whatever, walking the dog, doing your workout, whatever it may be, driving around town, you can listen to the blog. So that option is there. And if you have an Instagram account, I do have the Astrological Winds channel set up on Instagram. So look it up, become a follower, and I post the link there. I also post additional information during the week many times. That's not video or audio, it's just comments on certain days that have really an extra push in the astrology going on. So it's always cool to see that. Also, the one other place I do post it is on my private Facebook account, which is under my name, Matthew with 2 T's, Lawton, Lauten. So if you want to friend me on Facebook, that's another way to always find the link. And I do use Facebook mainly just for astrology, so not a lot of other social interaction on there, just so you know. So it is a free service, and the best thing you guys can do for me to pay me back a little would be to pass the link on to somebody else you know. That's the way the blog has been growing, and really appreciate it. Getting more and more followers, both on YouTube and on the podcasts, and really, just want organic growth like that from people who appreciate the blog and want to pass it on to someone else. And remember, over 50% of the world believes in astrology now, so it's not an odd thing to do that. The other way you guys can support me, the best way to support me, is I am a professional astrologer. It is my career too. I've been doing charts for over 20 years. I'm formally trained, did 7 years of schooling, and so I'd love to do your chart, or somebody, if you know someone looking for a chart work done, please get in touch with me. MATTHUE823 at gmail.com. That's MATTHUE823 at gmail.com. Okay, last thing I want to remind y'all, if you're not an expert in astrology, don't get caught up on the astrological terms. You want to listen to what my interpretations of them are, because that gives you the knowledge. That's what you really need to know to have a smoother week, hopefully this week, and be able to work with that energy. So like I said, 3 things going on this week. The first one, pretty much today, July 3rd, Monday, we have a full moon it's at the 12th degree of Capricorn, and since it's a full moon, that means it's opposite the sun, right? So the sun's at the 12th degree of Cancer, the opposite sign of Capricorn, and it's also opposite Mercury, which, if you'll remember last week, Mercury and the sun did a superior conjunction, and so they are together still, and so the moon will be opposed. The full moon will also be opposing Mercury in Cancer, and also separating from a trine to Jupiter this full moon. It is a separating, but a nice trine to Jupiter, so it is ruled by Saturn, this full moon. So First of all, Moon in Capricorn, what's it looking for? Moon in Capricorn is actually considered traditionally weak. It's in detriment at that time. And it's a time when we are trying to restrict or control our emotions or discipline them somehow. That we feel Capricorn has this way of looking at emotions that it can, it should be minimal, and that like emotions can easily throw the system off because people, when they make emotional decisions, they're usually imbalanced, they're unwise, they're not based on the knowledge we have up to that point. They're reacting to some momentary decision. So Moon in Capricorn is all about trying to control that emotional side of us, to somehow discipline it or restrict it in some way. It's into making sure that the system continues as it does, to not upset the apple cart. That this is what has worked in the past, but you can see how that can be a limitation, that it can make us always be focused on the past and not allowing new experiences come in, which many times are triggered by an emotion at first. So and that's what the Sun in Cancer likes. The Sun in Cancer is actually, that's where the moon normally rules that sign. It's a very emotional sign. And so normally the moon with Cancer, they get along really well, but the moon in Capricorn, a little bit too much of a serious attitude for the Cancer sun. The Sun in Cancer really is motivated by emotions. So you can see Capricorn moon is trying to limit those emotions, and the Sun in Cancer is like, well, wait a minute, that's where I'm motivated this time. They do have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. An attachment to the past, both of them, about trying to protect on a basic level what is needed for just literally surviving, but like that can be very limiting. So that Sun in Cancer has a hard time getting the moon in Capricorn to agree to allow the emotions to flow in and to allow them to dictate a lot of your motivations and actions. And, the Capricorn's like, no, that's going to throw us off. It's going to throw the train off the track. So it's interesting that Mercury is in Cancer too. Because normally Mercury, I think, would, when you think about this full moon, it would side more, Mercury in its pure energy would side more with the moon in Capricorn and be like, hey, the emotions, can throw us off. We make a lot of poor decisions when we're emotionally triggered. So like, use the mind, use the intellect, use logic instead in discipline. But Mercury is in Cancer, same as the Sun, which means that actually the mind, the intellect, is also under the influence of emotions right now. That emotional content is driving how we're making a lot of our decisions right now. So very, very interesting on that level, because basically Mercury normally would want more of that Capricorn energy of being like, hey, let's think this through thoroughly. What do we know? What have we used in the past? And I think this full moon is going to end up exposing us to how Cancer has a lot to do with habits. So the full moon is shining the light on the Cancer side. So I think it's going to show us a lot on how our habits affect us, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And maybe that's where the moon in Capricorn is like, hey, this is where we need a little more discipline. I'm shining a light on this, and you can see how your emotions are affecting your life. And it may not be the best thing. Maybe it's something that you do have to reel in a little bit more, and not allow that to take us so far off course. So the full moon could give us a little bit of energy on that. And it's interesting too, I think with the trine to Jupiter, it is separating. There's a trine to Jupiter too, but that will give us a good balance with the attitude of it too, so that we don't get either too emotional or too cold-hearted, that we can have the right attitude of like, hey, yeah, I can learn something from this full moon. I can learn something that is like going to bring me personal growth, is going to give me more insight. And once I see that, I can use that to my benefit, where maybe I can see where I'm limiting myself too much, or where I'm being too emotional, too exuberant, too overly optimistic without getting all the plans down. And that's where Saturn comes in. Saturn is the ruler of this full moon. And, right now, Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, not the strongest. But if you remember last week, the Sun and Mercury, still conjunct this week, were both trining Saturn, and they still are. So there, once again, I think that's like, a real nice bringing together of all these energies so that none of them can dominate, is a good way to say it. Like, we have the Cancer kind of balanced out with the Mercury, the Capricorn moon kind of balanced out with the Cancer energy of the Mercury, and then Saturn coming in also kind of balanced out a little bit in Pisces, seeing both sides of the story, understanding that it can bring all that stuff together with the trines, like seeing a system where, oh, look at this knowledge I have now, and I can actually, make my system, Capricorn, work better because of what I see now. And then Mercury with the trine to Saturn will give us the ability to fill in all the details to get everything working. So I really think this full moon could work because it's not tipping hard on any of the levels, like they're all kind of coming together and balancing a little bit. So I really like that. Now, what you want to do in your chart, look at where 12 degrees of Capricorn and Cancer, they're going to be opposite one another. So they're going to fall into two different houses in your chart. And those are the two houses where you're going to see this energy playing out. Am I being too emotional? Do I need more discipline here? Or am I, crushing the emotional content too much and not allowing enough emotion and feeling into my decision making? So it's like, it's a balance. Opposition is always about finding the right balance. Kind of think about a seesaw, at a park. And that spot, the full moon, where can we find that balancing point, and how much can we stay there? It kind of goes back and forth. As we know, the full moon, we act out. But I think this full moon in Capricorn right away, that's probably one of the least acting out reactionary full moons. But like with all this balance of this energy and the trines to the ruler Saturn in the chart, it gives it a really nice, I think, balance that where, you think, you're going to go out there, the Jupiter will give it the attitude of wanting to get and give support too, and that can bring in the things that we need, that we're looking for. So there's a lot of an interesting energy where it seems to me they all kind of balance together in this full moon. And so that's what it's all about, just trying to find the right amount of emotional content that we need to put into our decision making, where it's not too much or too little, and find that right balance between the two of them. So then Mercury has three aspects going on, and this is going to start, I believe it's Wednesday, through Sunday. Wednesday through Sunday, Mercury is going to hit three of the outer planets one after another. Starting on Wednesday, there's a square to Chiron. And I think this is really interesting that when Mercury squares Chiron, it's kind of like aware that there's some, that the mind is in some like kind of pain or troublesome about something. It's troubled, a troubled mind, but it's also like curious about learning what it can about that trouble and taking it on. Like, what can I figure out about this and do about this? So it gives like this curious mind of wanting to take in more intellectual stuff and stimulation, but at the same time, it's like, it is like a lot of it is a struggle, and it hurts to see a lot of what we see. But then it goes to a sextile to Uranus on Thursday, which is really nice, because what I think happens there, these energies, like I said, always work together. What we see there starts to actually give us some ideas, and about what we want to do to change, to make changes to change that situation that's causing us some kind of mental anguish or pain. So I think this is a time when the Mercury sextile Uranus gives us those opportunities. We'll get some new information somehow, like either through what we're looking at or through connections with others or through something that stimulates the mind, gets it going, and it gets it excited about something that can bring in something new to it, and bring in a new vision, a new way of dealing with old stuff, like whatever it may be troubling our mind. It could find some new solutions to old problems or completely new ways of dealing with certain things. And it also has a lot to do with like taking stuff from the mind, using the mind as a tool. So like stuff like technology, science, even the study of the occult, things like that help bring in that information that we need to develop what these opportunities to find answers to the things that are troubling our mind. So it's very, very interesting energy. It's like getting a blast of stimulation from outer sources that we can bring in and create into new opportunities for us for learning and adjusting and correcting and doing things like that. And then finally on Sunday, Mercury makes its final aspect of the week to Neptune. It does a trine to Neptune. And I think, if we continue the story at that point, those ideas are inspiring us. Mercury trine Neptune, we kind of get right-brained for sure. We get more into the abstract thinking world, the dream world, the fantasy world, tapping into our imagination and inspiration, even like mystical type stuff. The mind is very like psychic. It can pick up on the emotions and thoughts of others. There's psychic power available. Like all the psychic energy is very high and harmonious now. So any of those psychic things that people look into, it's a time where it can really flow. But it also has a lot to do with artistic inspiration and output, hopefully. Sometimes not with the trine, because the trine might give the inspiration, but you might not act on it. But being very artistic with our words. So it's great for like storytelling, rapping, lyrics, writing lyrical stuff, poetry, fantasy writing, fictional writing, things like that. Really stimulates the imagination. Also good for like spiritual journeys. So it's a good weekend to do a spiritual type of retreat next weekend with that energy and get really into a meditative mind set that's really allows the spirit world to get into us and diffuse a lot of the harsh reality kind of world. So very, very interesting journey for Mercury next week. I think it starts with a wound, then we get some ideas about what to do with it, and it brings us some healing through our mind and the thoughts. And then the last thing I wanted to mention this week is Mars is in a yod this week with the ever-ongoing Neptune-Pluto sextile. And why do I say the ever-ongoing Neptune-Pluto sextile? If you're an astrologer, you'll know. Neptune and Pluto have been in a sextile for decades, basically, or in and out of it, for the most part. And, so they're, relatively close again. And just such a long cycle the two of them have that, literally it takes decades for them to separate from one another when they get into an aspect. Their cycle together, I think, is over 450 years, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. I think it's about that, though. You can kind of quote me on it if you want. Anyway, a yod is a very interesting configuration, and what's going on is there's this sextile and a planet gets in between them on the long midpoint, what we call the long midpoint, and that creates a yod. It looks like an arrow in the chart where, one planet's here and the other two are like the two parts of the arrow coming out here and here. So it literally looks like the finger of fate or the hand of God. And that's what's interesting about yods. Yods have a lot to do with giving up control, allowing them to unfold. It's almost an aspect kind of having more destiny that's kind of we're blind to. Like it's almost like life saying to us, or spirit saying to us, I know better. You just trust me and you'll know what to do when the moment comes. But there, because the quincunxes from Mars to Neptune and Pluto are very troublesome. There's not a lot in common with these, and in this case, I think a lot of it is going to have to do about power and how we stand up for ourselves in relation to the ideals we have. One more time, I think this yod is all about our own power and the ideals that we have and how we stand up for ourselves in relation to them. And many times what happens when we're trying to push one of our ideals into the real world, which is Mars, being active, pushing, motivating, acting on things, our ideals can go one way or another. One of them is we can get very discouraged, that's the Neptune part, by the reactions of the world, the real world, to our ideals, that they may not be congruent, and it can be very disheartening, and it can create a lot of disenchantment within us and not clear what to do when it's Mars. At that point, it can kind of like almost, I don't want to say freeze us, because it inactivates us, not like it just makes us go into a homeostatic state, kind of feeling disheartened and seeing how disconnected we are and feeling overwhelmed by the amount of adjustment that it would require to reconnect. And then the other way that, when our ideals aren't working is to fight for them. And that's where the Mars-Pluto quincunx part comes in, where we end up trying to push those ideals even though they're getting resistance from authorities or others in the real world. And so we end up getting in a power struggle over what we're trying to do instead. So like it's either like being overly aggressive and being too pushy and literally getting negative reactions, negative impressions that can, even lead in Mars Pluto can even lead to like violent type reactions, or we're getting this like just disheartening kind of thing where it just takes our energy away. And so like this is a tough yod. It's like you go back and forth, and that's the thing about yods. You're trying to figure out what to do. You're trying to figure out what to adjust to, and that a lot of times requires some separation, possibly even some loss. But with a yod, it's kind of like, don't feel like you have to be the driver, is a good way to say this. Like you're more of a passenger in the car, and all you need to do is like whenever it comes to a point where, say, the car stops or whatever, you react to the situation at hand. You don't try to dictate too much what's going on, and you also don't get so disheartened that you just give up. You look around you at what is provided in the moment that is the tools necessary to react to what's going on there. And if you can do that, yods are amazing, because they are trying to bring us to a place it's very difficult for us to get to by ourselves. Okay? But if we can let go, they take us to that place, and it's kind of like the end of the rainbow. We may find a pot of gold there, in some kind of figurative sense. Something that's very rewarding for us. Something that's like, wow, I really needed this, and I actually belong here, but I didn't even kind of know that before this. So it has a lot to do with trusting the process to allow it to unfold. So I think that's going to be the thing here. Don't take actions until you're seeing how, it's unfolding in front of you this week. And then you should have everything around you that you need to, adjust to that situation. And if you can do that correctly, it's kind of like surfing probably, You can surf those waves correctly, you're going to have a really good run, and you'll probably really like the destination it brings you to at the end. And you'll be like, yeah, I did deserve this, and maybe I never even knew it. So a very interesting yod configuration this week. All right, that's what I got for this week. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free video blog I do every week on YouTube, and sometimes even do more than one a week, like last week, the monthly one. So make sure you go back and check the July one out, because there was 5 big things going on in July that you want to know about. But anyway, if you become a follower, if you have a YouTube account, you'll always know, if you turn your notifications on too, when I post the blog. Also, it's available on podcasts. Buzzsprout distributes it, over 20 podcasts. Pick it up. All you need to do is look it up, Astrological Winds channel, on your favorite podcast, and you should be able to find it. Apple iPodcasts for sure, Reveal, Spotify, some of those others. Also, if you have an Instagram account, I post the link there, and I sometimes post additional material, just comments, not video or audio, during the week. So some fun stuff there. And if you have an Instagram account, become a follower, please. And then, the one other place I do post it is on my private Facebook account. You have to friend me, and I don't get on it a lot. I only check it out once a week or so. So be patient there. And I don't use Facebook for much else either, so just so you know that. The other great way you guys can really help me out, besides passing the link on as soon as you're done with this to somebody else who might be interested, is if you or someone needs a professional astrology reading. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. I'm trained for 7 years in doing it. Done many, many readings. Great, just great reactions from people. Would love to do your chart, or whoever that's looking for it. I do natal readings, which is your birth chart, and trust me, if you've never had a professional astrologer do your birth chart, you really haven't had it done yet. A computer printout, reading a book on it, or your friend who read a book on it giving you a reading is just not the same. And it's something that you take with you everywhere. So you really, really worthy investment for life, literally, to know those energies that are in your chart and how to work best with them. Every year, if you know your birth chart, I recommend you do a predictive reading around the time of your birthday, which is the best time. And basically it's a weather report for your next year, just like I do on this blog for everybody. It's just for you, and it's for a full year. And that way, once again, you're aware of the energies that are working in your life this year, and you can work better with them. Also do charts for children. If you're looking to figure out ways to relate to your children better and the main events of their life, when they'll be. You can do that. Relationship charts, if you in a new relationship, and what is that attraction? You guys want to know how you're connecting. Or if you're in an older relationship and the relationship, is going through things. You want to see where it's going, just like your predictive reading. You can look at your relationship and see where that's at. And also do elections for people who are, need an important date and starting time for something that's really significant, like starting a business, getting married, things like that. We can hone in on the best date and time for you to have success. Horary, if you have a burning emotional question that you can't seem to get an answer or decision to, a lot of times, chart will show us what the answer is. Also, fixed star readings. These are for people who are very, spiritually oriented is a good way to say it, towards looking at their chart and understand their natal chart already well, too. Astrocartography, relocation services. If you're looking to move somewhere else or you are moving somewhere else, how that changes your chart, what becomes stronger, what becomes weaker, those kind of things. I'm also available. I have beginners classes. There's 5 of them available. Also available for lectures, question and answer sessions, workshops, mini readings, that kind of thing for your group. So all of these things, just get in touch with me. It's MATTHUE823@gmail.com. That's the best way to get me, and we can discuss how to set that up. That's one more time, my email, MATTHUE823@gmail.com. All right, guys. Well, we got an interesting week here. I think there's a lot of energy we can work with, and nice. I really think there's a nice balance on the full moon. Mercury has an interesting journey. The yod could be a little bit tricky. Just try to remember to stay within the moment and then react to what you need to do when you know that key time has come. All right. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'll see you all next week.